Greetings and welcome to episode 147 of the Words About Gamescast, the weekly video game podcast for words about games. You can always tell it's a good sign when Keith checks the time before I've even finished the intro. I am your host, Amy Alexander, and I'm joined this week by Keith Robinson. Nod. Thumbs up. I'm just doing a service to our audio listeners. I'm annotating your movements. Sighs. Eyes Amy like he wants to kill her.
Hold on, chair.
Pratfall. How's it going?
Sideways.
Do you mean life, or your mood, or your chair? The whole house? I don't know how to respond to that, but then I really know how to respond to how you tell me how you're doing. So that is a thing. We're doing something different this week, Keith, and it might stick and it might not. I don't know. I've had this idea rolling around in my head for a couple of weeks now. And then when I tried to talk about it, you cancelled on me and I had to just do it.
Let's do it. Do it now.
Yeah, I figured you would say that. So it's, like we're condensing the podcast down, but not really. It's probably still going to be like the same length and the same amount of discussion time. We're just going to talk about less, but more. I'm explaining it really well. This is good. This podcast is going to go for a while today. We're talking about less things, but we're going to be like having broader discussions about things that we do talk about. We're not limited to news. It's kind of like a fusion of the new Words About Gamescast, where we do like news stories and stuff, and the old Words About Gamescast, where we used to just do certain topics every week. And it means we don't always have to just talk about things that are in the news, as evidenced by number 3 this week. Wow, I felt like a clickbait headline there.
Yeah, to be honest, I thought you would come and test me Street. Today's episode brought to you by the number 3.
Number 3 will shock you.
The letter
It won't
4
shock you.
and Aardvox. Never killed anyone.
Yeah, number 3 won't shock you, but it's not news. It should prompt a lively discussion, though. It'll certainly give us both a jolt. So should we just get right into it?
Yes, please.
So the first thing we are going to talk about is Anthem. We're going to be discussing Anthem. I've written my own headlines for each section, and this one is: Anthem has had a few rocky launches, not helped by Microsoft executives or review scandals. So this is in 3 parts. We're going to talk about each part. I'm going to do the reading, the context, as it were, and then we're going to have a discussion about each one. And this first one, I wasn't originally going to post like an article in here to talk about it because it's a question. And I was going to ask this question anyway because I think I was talking to somebody about it this week. And I wanted to have this discussion on the podcast, given the way Anthem has gone in the past week. But I decided to pull this because somebody asked the exact question I was going to ask, which is, did Anthem's early access week do more harm than good? This is from Mike Futter over at Polygon. He wrote a big long article, and I've took bits out of it to give the context to the discussion that we will hopefully be having. It all began with The Grid, a more complicated than it needed to be visual explainer of when you could play Anthem on each platform. It wasn't rocket science, but it's a long way from the days when games had a single release date. The discussion around The Grid and Anthem's early playtime became a distraction. It was memed on social media with thousands of comments openly deriding the chart. What was intended as an easy way to communicate the value of EA Access and Origin Access Premier subscriptions became a flashpoint for criticism. In the week between early play, which was February 15th, and the game's official release on February 22nd, EA ended up with a problem on its hands. Critics and players weren't falling in love with the game. Key features weren't well tutorialized, excessive load times hampered the experience, and the messaging around a Day 1 patch for a game already playable 4 days confounded EA's PR operation. Instead of having ambassadors out in the community promoting the game and critics building excitement for the release, There's an entire week of unfavourable press and social media discourse that is no doubt having an effect on pre-orders, or, at the very least, the public perception of Anthem. So, that's the question I wanted to furnish, just to start us off as we talk about this week's podcast, as we talk about Anthem as our first thing. Did Anthem's early access week do more harm than good in the grand scheme of things?
I'm not going to answer that question directly. I'm going to first start off by saying I can kind of see what they were going for, I think, which is that traditionally when we have a big AAA game like Anthem launching, we get day one things with people complaining about large patches and servers being overwhelmed. I mean, how many times in the last 6 months have we heard about things about EA servers being overwhelmed by interest in this or that?
By Anthem.
Yeah, but
during the demo, the beta. Yeah. No, they called it a demo. But during the demo, I remember, took down their entire service at one point.
Yeah. And I think this was something they were kind of hoping to avoid by having sort of phased launch. Sort of. But yeah, the graph that the image.
Grid.
Yeah. Reminded me less of a launch schedule and more of a Kickstarter, where you got the...
Oh, yeah.
Because you've got the different tiers of access. Like, if you get this tier of access, and although it's written down the side what you get, there's always that thing in a Kickstarter, if you haven't used one, where it tells you what level of access you get and what's add-ons and stuff. And it just reminded me of that more than it did a release schedule.
Yeah, because the grid itself was a grid,
yeah,
and it showed the dates of and what you were getting. So if you had Origin Access Premier, you get access to the full game on February 15th. Whereas if you had the Legion of Dawn Pre-Order Collector's Edition, you had access to the private beta demo, and then you had to wait until February 22nd when the game came out. And it was stuff that was easy to you know what I mean? It was easy to communicate, but I think the way that they communicated it was very strange. They've been doing these early access trials for years, with a lot of their games. I was playing Battlefield 5 during the week leading up to launch, which had no real major problems. But on the flip side of that, I remember playing Mass Effect Andromeda before it came out. For my 10 hours, you only had access to didn't have access to the full game. You only had access to 2 and a bit hours of the single player story, and that had significant problems before it came out. And I think I remember asking this question then as well, which was this a good idea? I can see from their point of view, they want to drive people to subscribe to Origin Access Premier or EA Access if you game on an Xbox and not PC. But it hasn't helped the game in terms of the discourse, the discussion, the memes, the GIFs, the clips. I shared one of my own clips of the game completely and utterly hard locking on me while I was playing it, deafening me because I was wearing headphones, and it did that thing where it just buzzed. Because bad reviews is one thing, and there were a lot of mediocre reviews leading into launch, and according to the disclosures on those reviews, they were playing with retail versions of the game that were provided by EA, which I assume had the day one patch, which wasn't a day one patch because it actually came before day one, or after day one, if you depending on your perspective. But you had that coupled, you had the critics, the reviews that were quite mediocre, coupled with normal people. And I don't mean that term derogatorily, I just mean normal gamers who aren't game critics, and having this week's early access and saying the same sort of things or worse. And then all of a sudden, people, if you're a person who's oh, Anthem, yeah, cool, that's coming out on the 22nd of February. Loads of people are talking about it. Oh, whoa, this game doesn't sound great.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's not like it was. I played it both before the patch and after. And the patch fixed a couple of things, but it was still quite buggy afterwards. And I mean, a lot of the problems with the game aren't technical related. But even then, still things like, I don't know if you've seen my impressions video of the game. I did manage to sneak a couple of the more interesting glitches into the footage that I put in. Like when I walked through a door in Fort Tarsis, and there was an NPC like Slenderman model thing that just kept appearing all over the place, like as I walked through the door, and then just disappeared completely. Like stuff like that was happening post patch.
Are you sure that wasn't just Slenderman? You're kind of haunted.
Maybe, I don't know. I didn't see him since. But like, I mean, it stopped crashing, but the frame rate was still pretty shocking in places, and yeah, it still wasn't great, like that great of a game. I mean, the loading screens are still there. Like, the length is one thing, and they've cut down the length of time that the loading screens take, but you still have to go through 5 or 6 at a time. Like when you come back from a mission in the field in Anthem, like you finish the mission, you get a loading screen, and then you end up in the post-mission screen where it tells you your XP and all your rewards, and then you end up in another loading screen, and then you're in Fort Tarsis, and then you walk to the NPC, and then you pick up the next mission, and then you come back, and then you go to the Forge, that's another loading screen, and then you go through all the stuff that you got, and maybe it's equip a new weapon or a new piece of gear or something, and then you come back out, which is another loading screen, and then you get into your javelin to go to the menu of like what mission you're gonna do. Do you want to party up, private matchmaking, whatever, which is another loading screen, and then once you've selected all that, you go into the field and you hit another loading screen. So for just basically finishing one mission and starting the next mission, you're talking like 6 loading screens to hit before you're back out there and playing the game again. And you can only do one mission at once, because despite the fact that this is an open world game, when you take on a main mission, you get in your javelin and you fly off into Bastion, and then once it's finished, the mission's finished, and it brings you back to the reward screen and then to Fort Tarsis again. So you're constantly being like yanked back, and then you fly off, and then you're being yanked back again. So it's not necessarily just the length, but also the number of loading screens that can be an issue.
Yeah.
Like you can't equip loot unless you go to the Forge in Fort Tarsis. Like if you pick something up in the field, you don't know what it is, except its rarity, because you pick up a coloured cube thing, like an engram in Destiny.
Yeah, I was thinking Destiny.
But you can't access your inventory unless you go back to Fort Tarsis and go into the Forge and equip stuff, which is just mental for a game that is basically a loot shooter.
Yeah.
And it's stuff like that. Like there's technical problems with the game. They will eventually be patched. They always are. Mm-hmm. But then there's a lot of problems baked into the design of the game as well, which is what a lot of people are talking about. And everybody's getting this, and we're in this weird space where everybody's getting week-long access to the game before it comes out, and talking about this stuff. And yeah, EA still think it's going to sell 6 million in 6 weeks. We'll see. I'm going to hazard a guess and say they're not counting EA Access, Origin Access Premier subscriptions in that sales figure. Which is another part of the discussion, really, where it's like, what if a ton of people subscribe to Premier and then the game only sells 4 million units, but 2 million people subscribed and played it on Premier? Does that count? Like,
I don't know what, like, the figure seemed optimistic.
That's one way to put it.
Before the demo came out.
Yeah, I mean, it's not outside the realms of possibility. It's a AAA game. Yeah, it's a AAA game that has 6 weeks to do those numbers, and it's got a big marketing push, and it's got marketing with Microsoft, and it's a bit unclear. And speaking of Microsoft, should we move on to part two?
Yes.
I've got 4 tweets from Microsoft's vice president, Mike Ibarra, who decided to well, as I wrote on this like headline, Mike Ibarra has some hot takes. So they're in groups of 3. I'm going to read each group and we'll discuss some stuff. The first tweet, which was in response to a PC Gamer article about the obnoxious Tomb quest lines being patched, and I will talk about the Tomb quest lines after I've read this because that's what made me stop playing the game. But the tweet reads, "This was actually very easy to do. Amazed at the whining. One reviewer, not the below, reviewed the game, yet in the review cited that he didn't even know how to do a combo. Embarrassing to review with such a lack of knowledge." I guess the first thing to say is, where do you want to start? Should I tell you about the Tomb quest lines, or do you want to start with the questions?
Yeah, let's explain to a novice like me who doesn't know what the Tomb quest lines, what a Tomb quest line is. Because I was just thinking, wait, there's combos in Tomb Raider.
There's combos in Anthem, and I'll explain how they work somewhat. I'm not 100% clear on how they work. I know the broad strokes, but the Tomb quest line. So it was patched because basically, and this is the thing that stopped me from playing Anthem. You're playing Anthem, and it's very much like a standard RPG setup. You get a main quest line mission. There's cutscenes and discussions and chats between characters, and then you go out and you do the mission, and then you come back, and then there's more cutscenes and talking and stuff, and that's the story for the first sort of probably about 4 or 5 hours of the game. And then you do a thing, you get a character. I'm not going to do any spoilers for people who are going to play Anthem. You pick up a character, and then that triggers the next quest, which is you need to open these 4 tombs that are out in Bastion, which is the name of the world in Anthem. So you have these. You go to the first door for the first tomb, which is marked on your map. You fly there, and then you can't get in. You have to unlock the door, and the way you unlock the door is a series of challenges. Now, when I say challenges, I mean like those optional extras that most people tend to ignore unless they're achievement hunting. So the challenges that you have to unlock, there's about 3 or 4 per tomb, and there's about 4 tombs you have to unlock, are things like get 50 melee kills, revive 3 down javelins, open 15 treasure chests. And that's the main quest line, so you have to do these challenges before you can progress to the next part of the story. So essentially, Anthem, because I said it in my review, for all the problems and the flaws, I was enjoying the core combat, and I was enjoying the story and the characters. So it had goodwill built up, and I was willing to keep playing it just for those reasons, until the game pulls the handbrake. And all of a sudden, I'm not enjoying a story or character interactions or a quest. I'm flying around trying to find 15 treasure chests. And before the patch, everything started from 0 once you got this quest. So even if you had 50 melee kills before you got to this door, you had to go out and get 50 because it started from there. Whereas they patched it so that it counted everything. So I think I'd already done like a third of all of the challenges just by playing the game up until that point.
Yeah.
After the patch. So that's the Tombs thing in a nutshell. I don't know why or what could have possibly prompted Mike Ibarra's tweet to basically saying get good to people whining about the game. But my first question is it an appropriate thing for the vice president of Microsoft to say about a review or a reviewer?
The vice president of Microsoft. Okay, so he's not the vice president of Xbox.
It's the news story I pulled from said vice president of Microsoft, but I know for a fact he's very heavily involved in Xbox stuff.
Because if he's the vice president of just like
Xbox's corporate vice president.
Right, okay, fair enough. Because if it was just like the vice president of Microsoft or Bill Gates having a private opinion about like gamers, that's one thing. But if it's someone in the games industry saying it, then that's another thing. Because you've got to think about your professional work ethic and your social media policies.
Right, like he's the corporate vice president, so I doubt he's going to get sacked unless he tweets something really, really, really bad.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like his words have an impact. Like the response to this has been astounding because I've seen a bunch of my I've seen a bunch of the people I follow who are game reviewers or game journalists be very sarcastic about this. There's an amazing article up on VG247, so you should definitely check out. It's incredibly sarcastic and brutal. In response to this, a lot of indie game devs have tweeted about it as well. Like, they've literally replied directly to him. Because I guess the second question, which I've written down, is it the reviewer's fault that Anthem has an incredibly poor tutorial? Because it's not in there. Combos isn't in there. Like, there's a lot that you don't get told about in Anthem unless you go to the pause menu and scroll all the way along and go into the encyclopedia and then go in and find, you know what I mean? Like, you have to actually go and seek that information out, whereas it could have been a 20-second tutorial. This is a combo. This is how it works. The only reason I know that combos are a thing is because of the class I picked as the Storm, who uses different elements as their gear. So when I first started playing, I had my default gear was an ice shot thing that I could use to freeze an enemy, and then a lightning blast. And that was a combo. Like you cover the enemy in ice and then detonate that as with the lightning, and it does combo, and it says combo. So I was like, oh cool, that's a combo. But not all of the elements interact in that way. Like I had fire and ice at one point, and they don't cause a combo, and I had lightning and fire, and they didn't cause a combo, and I didn't know how to cause a combo again, like except with ice and then lightning. Like,
yeah.
So, like, I was stumped. Like, and it should be in the game. Like, it's a 30-second explanation of combos that isn't in the game. And it's not the reviewer's fault. At least that's my opinion. That they didn't know how to do this.
If a game doesn't tell you how to do something, people can't be lambasted for not knowing about it. It's like, say, you're playing Dark Souls or Neo or The Witcher, and all these people are calling you noob because you don't know about rolling, but the game's tutorial never mentioned that you can dodge out the way by like rolling to one side.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of experimentation in games like Dark Souls and Neo, but even they give you the basics.
Yeah.
Like, they tell you how to attack, how to dodge, how to do this, how to equip weapons. It's like, if the game doesn't say, yo, but if the game doesn't stop you for just a sec, I just want to talk to you for a second, just so you know about this. And then, fair enough, like, if you choose to ignore that, then yes, that is a thing you could probably call out someone for. But yeah, no, it's just not there. It's just not a thing. So that was the first one. And you would think, with all of these people sort of pointing out that this is a bad take, you know? Like, yikes. Do you think Mike Ibarra stopped? No, he did not. We've got 2 tweets on the topic of reviewers themselves. This is confusing, in a way. But anyway, the first tweet. I don't do reviews because everyone enjoys different things. I'd suggest modern reviews should be watching streamers play a game, doing the demo, listening to what your gaming friends think. And if it seems like something you will enjoy, then great. Which was then followed up with a reply tweet which said, Def should also read reviews from your favourite sites/journalists as input. Many things to look at to help determine if you like or dislike a particular game. I reference many of them all the time for my own decision making. The more the better. So that was a wild ride. I don't do reviews, but you should definitely read reviews from your favourite sites and journalists.
Yeah.
Like I do. And it's like that gif with the lady from the TV show and all the numbers and formulas and stuff coming up. Like, wait. Hold on.
How are you going to go with John Travolta one? Like,
yeah, like, I mean, Should modern reviews be watching streamers play a game?
I'll counter this with a question. Amy, what happened to reviews on our website?
They don't exist anymore.
Correct.
Because, well, for a variety of different reasons, like how long you got.
Yeah. It's like there are reasons that, because it does seem to be the very modern thing now of people watching people play the game or talk about the game as opposed to reading it.
Yeah, definitely. But even though we don't do like full reviews, like we switched to impressions. So instead of me playing a game fully, like with Anthem, if I wanted to do a review of Anthem, I would have to at least get to the end game and experience some of the end game. Well, that would be a review to me. Whereas now it's just impressions. I'm going to play this game for X amount of hours until I understand the game. And then say, I have played it for this amount of time. Here are my thoughts on it. It's still structured in exactly the same way as a review. Like, if anything, like my review probably would have been more antagonistic because I would have been forced to have played the game for an extra 20 hours that I didn't want to play. Like, this is one of the reasons we switched to impressions, because one of my major bugbears is games that don't respect my time. And like, I was sick of playing games to completion that I didn't want to play, to then miss out on like a game that I really wanted to play. And
yeah. I mean, just like Persona, that had no respect for your time. 150 hours of your time?
There was no respect for my time, but it was an awesome game from pillar to post. Like, I loved every minute of that game. Almost. There's some weird stuff in there when the lead paint and thing.
There is that, which even I was kind of like, I know this is kind of like it's a tropey sort of thing, but yeah, it is very.
It is what it is. Yeah. But yeah, no, like I feel like watching streamers is great, like for information on games, but reviews are also good, and I trust, and I know this is going to sound weird as someone who is a YouTuber / Twitch streamer, I trust the reviews I see on like Eurogamer or Polygon or Kotaku or PC Gamer a hell of a lot more than random people on YouTube and Twitch. We'll get into one of the reasons why shortly. Let's do tweet number 4 in response to bugs in Anthem, which is very short. It literally just says, it's not even out until Friday. My first question is, Keith, is that actually true? Was the game released on February 15th or February 22nd?
Who knows? It is a complicated matter because it's early access, but it's really not.
Yeah.
Because there's only a certain amount of like patching they can do in between the 15th and the 22nd.
Yeah, like
yeah,
they obviously had a day one patch that they were working on from when they committed the final build of the game to day one. Except in their eyes, day one was February 22nd. In my eyes, it was February 15th because I could go on my PC, pay money, and get the full game. Like, not a 10-hour demo, not a slice of the game like what was in the beta. The full game. Like, there was no time on it. I could have downloaded the game on the 15th and played it and finished it before it even launched. And my counter to people saying, well, it's only available on one platform, on one subscription service would be, yeah, but we see this all the time in reverse, right? Games sometimes come out on Xbox and PS4, and then a few months later or a few weeks later, they come out on PC. It's the same thing. You wouldn't say that the game on PS4 wasn't the release date. It's just that the game has two release dates. And that's the way I see this.
Yeah.
Very strange situation. Should Anthem be given a pass on bugs because it was an early access, even though people were playing the full game?
Early access.
I know I put it in air quotes because it's not early access, but it's an accurate description.
Yeah. It's the whole Deus Mechanica thing about it's like, we'll release the game 14 days early.
Yeah.
Well, obviously the game's ready if you're going to release at this point.
To spin it around, instead of saying the game was released 7 days early in Origin Access Premier, let's say the game was released a week late if you were playing normally on PC or on Xbox One or PS4. that probably be a more accurate description.
Yeah.
And then does that not make the fact that the PC version didn't come with the day one patch because it came out on day 6? That, I mean, you can't excuse that. Like, if I'm running into bugs, that's a problem because I'm playing the full game.
I'm suddenly cutting back to that. Since you give little PSA, was like, bug report! And it's like, the car is no longer indestructible. It just explodes. The shotgun can't hit anything with a sniper rifle. Bug report.
Bug report. Like, it's such a fucking weird situation, and like, so many people have so many weird takes on it, and it's like, it's not out till Friday. Well, yeah, that's kind of true, but also not at all true. Like, if they just applied the day one patch to the game day one on PC, some of these issues might have been avoided completely. Because as far as I'm like, that's day one, right? Like, it's 2019 and we're struggling to define what launch day is for a game. Which is kind of mental. Anyway, let's talk to part 3. I've got a story here from Mike Futter again, this time over at gamesdaily.biz, because apparently Mike gets around as a journalist. Freelancer. Ironic, considering we're talking about Anthem. This is a weird one, so bear with me. I think I understand it now that I've read it 17 times. EA says YouTube creators Anthem video removed for disclosure failure, not content. This was a very strange story that started on Thursday and is still kind of going on. I'm going to read the story, which says, EA has been accused of removing a sponsored video for being overly critical. YouTube creator GGG Man Lives posted a video titled Anthem Review It's Pretty Bad on Thursday, February 21st, a day before the game's release. Shortly after the video was taken offline in response to an inquiry about this, GGG Man Lives stated, I'm blacklisted now and had to delete it. In his re-uploaded video and in a tweet predating the re-upload, GGG Man Lives is confident EA has blacklisted him. Quote, I had to re-edit my original review for Anthem because it was deemed too negative. And I guess on top of that, I've been added to the long list of blacklisted YouTubers, end quote. Seems cut and dry, right? Yeah. Like, EA sponsored a video, and then that video was negative, and they've pulled it because, you know, they didn't want a sponsored video that was negative. It's very believable. Like, in the modern day. Like, it's very believable. It just immediately just go, you dicks. But the update is where things get really confusing. EA has shared additional information with Game Daily related to the GGG Man. That's fucking hell, man. Gaman Lives Anthem video and the allegations that EA had it removed for negative content. EA runs 2 separate programs for influencer and content creator videos. Game Changers is the unpaid program that will cover expenses to EA events, but as we know from the Apex Legends launch, EA also does directly sponsor influencers to generate content. There are 2 separate watermarks that are used in these instances. For Game Changers, the watermark says presented by Game Changers. That's the watermark Gaman Lives used in the past and told Game Daily was present in his original video before it was re-uploaded. The other watermark, used when there's a sponsored content agreement and money changes hands, and that's the important part, is sponsored by EA. EA has confirmed to Game Daily that it specifically requested that Gaman Lives replaces the presented by Game Changers watermark on the video with the one that reflects sponsorship, because that was the relationship for this content. He previously published another video from an EA event hosted in Tokyo with the Game Changers watermark that he says met EA's approval. In a conversation on Twitter via direct message, Gaman Lives confirmed that he did receive compensation for this video, but claims it was under the Game Changers program, which EA told Game Daily in a comment earlier does not support review videos. As stated in the original story, EA does not typically pay Game Changers more than a small stipend for incidentals when flying them out to events. Gaman Lives declined to share the contract he signed related to the videos or his correspondence with an EA PR representative, in which he says that he was told to remove the video for its contents. And you can see my first question clear as day on the screen. I'm going to ask it. What on earth?
Dark side. the video reviews.
Right. In terms of what happened, I think I have a grasp on it. So he gets paid. GGG Man Lives, gets paid to do sponsored content about Anthem by EA. Now, sponsored content is stuff like what we saw at Apex Legends launch, where they paid a bunch of streamers to play the game and talk about the game on Twitter and Insta and probably a bunch of other social media networks that we're not cool enough to know about. But those things aren't reviews or previews or impressions or basically anything that can be seen as EA is paying you for a positive review. So, right, that's part one. GGG Man Lives puts this thing up with the wrong watermark, and then EA asks him to take it down because it's got the wrong watermark on it, where it should say sponsored, not Game Changers, because you don't get paid unless you travel somewhere for Game Changers. The part I can't get, and I'm taking what EA said at face value because I have no reason not to, is why, if the problem was the watermark, why did GGG Man Lives then say the problem was the video was negative and that's why EA took it down? That's the part I can't connect. I mean, I can make some speculation.
I mean, there's different. Maybe there is a comment where the person says it's overly negative, or maybe it's his impression because he's been asked to take that down this video, but not one where he was more positive towards EA.
Potentially. I mean, I watched a bunch of Game Changers videos to try and understand what the fuck was going on, because I'd never heard of Game Changers, or I mean, I know about sponsored content, I guess, but I'd never heard of Game Changers.
Yeah,
and like, there are some pretty negative Game Changers videos out there. Mm-hmm. There was a YouTuber I can't remember the name of, and he did a Game Changers review for the Sims 4 pack, which was incredibly negative, but still has Game Changers content coming out after that. And it even says on EA's like policy and FAQs and stuff about Game Changers that like they don't mind negative content as long as it's constructive. Like, if it's just ranting and telling everybody to go fuck themselves and whatnot, obviously that's not cool. But that's not cool whether you're a game changer or not, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's very confusing. Why he took to Twitter to say it's because it's negative content. It's because I was negative about the game. But no.
There's a lot of people being negative about the game at the moment.
There's a lot of people being negative about the game at the moment. And then GG Man Lives confirmed that he did receive compensation for the video, which isn't a Game Changers thing. It's a sponsored content video. So you've got two problems there. According to EA's policy, number one is they don't pay people for Game Changers videos, so therefore it definitely had the wrong watermark on it. And because he wasn't disclosing that it was sponsored. And number two, they don't pay people to do reviews. Because there'll be a bunch of conspiracy theorists saying, well, they definitely pay off people to do reviews. No, because if they got caught, they would be fucked so far up the arse that whatever they were fucked with would be coming out of their mouth by the FTC. Sorry for the graphic visual there.
Yeah.
I have a sarcastic question written here. Is this what Mike Ibarra means by modern reviews? You don't actually have to answer that. I'm just being cheeky.
I would prefer not to.
But here's one. Here's my last one on this entire topic as well as this particular thing.
Yeah.
GGG Man Lives has now removed the watermark entirely. Is this not worse than having the wrong watermark?
Possibly.
Because now it's sponsored in some way content by EA that is now not disclosing that it is or was sponsored. Because even if you gave the money back, you still got the game and whatever else support, anything from EA. Does it not need to be disclosed either way?
I am not up on contract law and disclosures in non-disclosure agreements, but I would imagine, yes, he has to disclose. I mean, if you have to disclose that you own part of an online casino, when you plug it. I would imagine. Yeah. Epic callback. I'd imagine he's have to disclose. I don't know how much of a disclosure he has to give. I don't know if he can get away with just a disclaimer in the video's description. Or if he needs a watermark.
The disclosure that EA asks for as part of their game changes, I've read a lot about this. This article that I've read, there's tons more over at GameDaily.biz. It has to be the watermark, it has to be audible, and it has to be written. So I'm guessing by that there has to be a watermark on the video. He has to say that he's doing X type of content in the video, and it has to be written in the description as well. So basically it has to be everywhere. Again, I think that's from the policy page, the Game Changers policy page. I don't know, man. This is weird. There's a whole other discussion to be had about sponsored content, and
yeah, let's not go down that road.
But maybe one podcast will do that when we have a slow news week. This was not a slow news week. Should we move on to part 2 of the podcast?
Yes.
Major layoffs set to hit ArenaNet and EA Melbourne studio Fire Monkeys. There's 2 stories here, obviously. ArenaNet and Fire Monkeys. I'm going to read both before we discuss stuff. So buckle up, everybody. So the first part is Guild Wars 2 developer ArenaNet plans for massive layoffs. This is from Jason Schreier over at Kotaku, because he always writes these stories. We writes, ArenaNet, the studio behind the popular online games Guild Wars and Guild Wars 2, informed employees today, or the day that it was written, that it is planning big layoffs, according to a person who's there. Although ArenaNet did not give out exact numbers, and they may not yet be finalized, rumors floating around the studio signal that a significant number of people will be let go. Will be let go. I'm reading it wrong. Song Yi-yoon, the CEO of Korean publisher NCSoft, which owns ArenaNet, emailed employees this afternoon with the news. Quote, our live game business revenue is declining as our franchises age. Delays in development on PC and mobile have created further drains against our revenue projects, while our operating costs in the West have increased. Where we are is not sustainable and is not going to set us up for future success. End quote. And then there was a second news story by Alex Walker, also of Kotaku, which says EA's Australian studio hit by massive layoffs. EA has begun a massive round of layoffs at its development studio in Melbourne. Fire Monkeys, which is created in 2012 after EA merged Iron Monkey Studios and Firemint, is one of the largest development houses in Australia. Focused exclusively on mobile development, the company is responsible for making Real Racing 3, as well as The Sims Freeplay and Need for Speed No Limits. In 2016, the company moved to a new office in Docklands and was hailed as the largest mobile game developer in the country, with Victorian Minister for Creative Industries Martin Foley praising the studio's history as one of innovation, creativity and global success. The Australian chapter of Game Workers Unite said the suspected job losses were equivalent to nearly 10% of the entire Australian game development industry. That's a lot of people.
That is indeed a lot of people.
I mean, first off, thoughts go out to everybody who's been affected or is going to be affected by these layoffs. It fucking sucks, but I probably could have thought of an more eloquent way to put that, but I decided to speak from the heart. It's more honest. I could have written like some nice prose about it. It fucking sucks, but so here's my question, Keith, based on the back of this. Apart from, are you as sick of talking about game development studio layoffs as I am? Given that since September 2018 there have been significant layoffs or outright closures at Capcom Vancouver, Telltale Games, Disney Canada, Tryon Worlds, Bandai Namco Vancouver, Jam City, Activision Blizzard, Fire Monkeys, and ArenaNet, is the AAA industry in some sort of trouble?
The games industry is going through some sort of change at the moment. I'm not an economist. I don't know if this is something that is happening because the amount of money people are spending on games is going up.
Yes.
As far as I'm aware. But we do keep hearing about cutting costs and people firing developers and development studios going under. It just seems to be a bizarre space at the moment where more and more games are getting made by a smaller group of people at a faster pace. And I can think of one publisher we've been talking about, who seems to be in this thing for a couple of years now, where they will release a game which obviously isn't ready,
Gee, I wonder who you could be talking about.
and then it's like, oh, but don't worry, we're working on this, and they're also firing people.
Yeah. I mean, BioWare Montreal was closed down
Yeah.
a couple of years back after Mass Effect Andromeda. Although, as far as I'm aware, no one lost their job. They just moved everybody to different studios. I mean, there. I'm going to vomit a little bit in my mouth as I say this. There are certain names on this list, like of developers and studios, where you can see individual reasons for why they struggled to the point that there were big layoffs or that the studios closed down. Like, ArenaNet is in the business of making MMOs, so is Tryon Worlds, and that is a shrinking space, has been for a long time. But that also kind of shows off what I think might be happening in the AAA space, which is, it's not necessarily that spending has slowed down or revenue has slowed down or even profits have necessarily slowed down. Like, I think at this point we have the evidence that none of that is happening. What I think the problem is, and I look at the list, I look at the names on this list of the AAA publishers: Activision, Blizzard, EA, Bandai Namco, Capcom. What I think, all of those companies are controlled by shareholders, and I'm gonna be that girl. The thing about capitalism and the way big corporations are run is it doesn't matter if you make a profit, you have to make more money this year than you did last year. And the games industry, and the AAA games industry, has just gone through a massive boom cycle, thanks to, well, loot boxes, and specifically, and things surrounding loot boxes, where instead of making hundreds of millions of dollars, games have been making billions of dollars. And what I think's happening now is they've reached the upper limit of how much money they can make on loot boxes because they've gone through an entire financial year of earning that money. And then you look forward from April to March next year, and it's like, well, how are we going to make more money? Well, can they even make more money? Like, without some new initiative to generate more revenue, that's not really possible, because I feel like they've topped out.
In-game ads and loot boxes.
Well, this is the thing. I mean, we were just talking about it before the podcast. Like, Black Ops 4 has loot boxes now, which means Black Ops 4, and I'm going to miss something here, or I'm going to forget something, but bear with me here. Call of Duty Black Ops 4 has all of the revenue streams that you could possibly have in video games. It's a full price $60 title. It has a season pass or a battle pass. It has microtransactions in the black marketplace. It has loot boxes now. It has everything. There's stuff I'm missing. I think it has a battle pass, but I don't know if that's just the season pass as well, or if it's something completely separate. It has DLC for like map packs and stuff for the non-blackout multiplayer. Like, what could they possibly add to that game to focus on Black Ops specifically, or Call of Duty specifically? What could they possibly add to that game to even make more money? And even if they did add something else on top of everything else that they've put in that game, would it even generate that much extra revenue? Because people only have a certain amount of money to spend on these things. Like, I don't know. I guess that's kind of a hypothetical question. I feel like if we answered it, they'd be watching. They'd be watching and they'd put it in the game. But it's like, there's only so far like you can monetize one game. And
I mean, you don't have to worry about them watching us.
Yeah,
We both know it's on Nintendo that pays me attention to you. But yeah, obviously not playing Blackout. I was unaware of how monetized it was.
They added a bunch of stuff after launch as well. They did that thing where there wasn't as much
People get angry
post-transaction revenue in the game, and then they added more and more and more as time went on.
Then the camel's back broke.
Because it's not in. Because if this is X, Y, and Z on in the game, then people can't talk about it when they do reviews or impressions, and then people buy the game, and then when it comes later. I mean, like, that might sound like I'm being harsh, but this is Activision Blizzard. This is a company that patented something called the microtransaction engine. Like, as far as I'm concerned, when I talk about their shit in their games, I'm not being harsh.
That could be the next thing.
It really could be. They've got a patent
unless it's in already. I mean, how would we know?
That's exactly what I was just about to ask. With something like the microtransaction engine, how do we even notice? I mean, we might be suck at games, because the microtransaction engine, for anyone that doesn't know, the way it works is, if Keith buys a gun in Call of Duty, then the microtransaction, and I don't, then the microtransaction will match me to him. And then in theory, because he's got this gun and I don't, he will do better than me. And the idea of the microtransaction engine is that I will go, damn, he did really well. What? I want that gun that he did really well with.
You missed a step, because it would also put me in a favourable map. Or like favourable situation to make it that purchase useful.
Yes.
For instance, if I just bought a sniper rifle, it would put me on the next map I got would be one which was more open and like useful for a sniper rifle.
Yeah.
If I bought a shotgun, it would be more close range.
Yeah. Sorry, there was a step there.
Yeah.
I guess we'll await.
I think the engine is called Insidious, or
there's probably some terrifying internal code name for this engine. But yeah, no, that's basically what the microtransaction engine is. So, like, we sit here and say, what could they possibly put in a game? They're probably already working on it if they haven't already done it, because it's what they think about. And also, I was sick to fucking death of talking about games companies laying people off. Mass layoffs. all those companies that I mentioned, that's only been since September.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's move on to number 3. This is what I meant when I said this doesn't. The changes to the podcast, if they stick, this isn't necessarily going to mean that we only talk about news, because Keith, Titanfall 2 is still awesome. So we've been playing Titanfall 2 thanks to the upsurge in player count due to Apex Legends. It's still awesome. Discuss.
It is still awesome. We played a bit. I absolutely sucked in my first couple of matches, but I got my groove on by later.
Yeah, I was in the same boat when we streamed it. Because we were going to stream it not last week, but the week before. But then I had some issues. We couldn't do it. We played Apex instead. Still had a really good time. Got a 3rd win. I've now won more matches in Apex Legends than I have in Blackout. And it's all because of Keith. Because you were the MVP that night. You got more kills than the two of us.
I changed this as a port character, and I just have that role in all life, don't I?
You do, yeah. But you zenyated it. You got all the kills. You got the last kill in the winning match, the clutch kill.
Yeah.
We both died at one point, and you carried our respawn banners and respawned us both at the same time. Like, you were clutch, like, in that game. But anyway, that's Apex Legends. So we finally streamed Titanfall 2 last week, and I was in the same boat as you. I sucked. In the first match I got back, I was like, this was a mistake. I suck at this game now. I'm constantly getting killed from nowhere. I don't know why I'm getting killed. The people on this game, like, may have had, like, 2 years extra practice than me on this game. Like, I was legitimately thinking playing this again was a mistake. And then we got into the second match, and I actually looked at... Well, 2 things happened. I actually looked at the setup, my loadout. And 2, I leveled up my submachine gun that I had equipped from 2016 when the last time I played this game was. And I got the run and gun mod that let me, like, be able to fire when sprinting, and that was it from there. I was off to the races. Like, I was sliding around corners, shooting people in the back. I was popping people off, getting double kills while I was running across a wall. Like, I shot someone as I came out of my Titan and came down. I fucking killed someone as I was on the way down. And I said probably 5 or 6 times, why the fuck did we start playing this game? It's fucking amazing. And then I went back to my 2016 Game of the Year list to, like, because I know it was there. I put it on there, and I was like, I put this game at like number 4. Or was it number? It was either number 3 or number. It was number 3. It went Final Fantasy, Overwatch, Titanfall, and I was like, God damn! And I just let this game slide, and that was a mistake.
Indeed,
it fucking rocks.
It does. I've been playing it pretty much every day since Apex Legends came out, and I have loved every minute of it.
Like,
it is so satisfying at times.
I mean, if you go to twitch.tv/wordsaboutgames, if you particularly want, you can watch me have a reaction to a game in real time that I haven't had in a very long time. And it makes it even more special because it's a game I've already played. But it's that joy of just finding something and then just falling in love with it.
Again, yeah.
Like, I was so happy. Like, I was telling you when we loaded into that one map from the first game, like, oh, I remember this map. It was the first map I played, like, when we went to EGX. When me and Russell went to EGX when it was there. And I got MVP in that match. I got MVP in that match, and Russ was so pissed. He played it every day at EGX until he did the same thing. And then when I went and fucking got him MVP in that match we were playing on Thursday, like, in the same map, like, just the interplay between the Titans and the pilots, the fact that you jump into your Titan pretty much as soon as you can, as often as you can.
Yeah.
But I don't really use my Titan, like, directly. And
you set on guard mode.
Both of us have really awesome experiences, and we both do pretty well. And it's like, you don't find that kind of balance in games these days.
I was on the canals level, and it's just like I was really sucking, and then I hadn't got a single player kill, and then I got into my Titan, and I got like 7 player kills in a row, and like helped like 2 assists or 2 kills on Titans, and it was just like I'm back in the mode.
I'm back in the.
I love my Titan. I spent so much time on it. It's like, I think I got Generation 11.11 today. Jesus. I've got the nose art for like the final level. Everything's maxed out. I've got like all of the achievement, like all of the challenges for like killing sprees, and the number of people killed is all maxed out on one Titan. And then you look at my other Titans, and they're all like level 2. Because I found one I like.
Yeah, I mean, I'm the same. Like, I need to experiment with some Titans because I just kind of stuck mostly with what I had from years ago, because I just figured I knew what I was doing years ago, and I don't really know what I'm doing now. It's so good. Yeah. It's so good. So, bearing in mind, we were 2 of thousands upon thousands of people that went back to Titanfall 2 after Apex Legends came out. And the population, at least on Xbox, hasn't dipped significantly. So it's gone up, and it hasn't come back down to where it was, or anywhere close to where it was. I'm going to ask you the question I asked you last week. Has Apex Legends saved the Titanfall franchise?
I start to say I don't know, because I don't know what's going to happen with Apex Legends, and like if they're going to try and keep going with this battle royale culture and stuff. But I really hope that, given what we've seen like on Titanfall doing stuff, that we do get a Titanfall 3. I know it's going to be at least on the next generation of consoles, but it is such a wonderful formula. I really hope that they don't get rid of it, like not so much get rid of it, but like change it so much in like the next iteration of games or whatever they're going to do with that world, because Titanfall 1 was cool, Titanfall 2 is just amazing in both campaign and multiplayer. It has such a wonderful balance and energy to it, which is totally opposite the battle royale genre, which is probably why you were thrown to begin with, because it's just so fast paced. It's like you die in it, it's like meh.
Yeah, no, that was one thing.
There's no time and there's no reason to get really annoyed about it.
And you're back in almost instantly.
Yeah.
I've got to admit, considering it's about 3 times faster than Apex Legends or any other battle royale, at least it's about 15 times faster than PUBG. Considering it's like that much faster, and it's got the sliding, it's got the wall running, it's got the double jumping, it's got Titans, and all of that. Like apart from the Titans, like all of the movement, you chain it together, like between the wall running, the double jumping, and the sliding, and it's so intuitive. Like bearing in mind, I hadn't played this game for two and a bit years.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you that within one 10-minute match, I was back on it.
Yeah. If you really want to give yourself a heart attack, though, like switch to the pilot type, which has got the stims to basically make yourself run even faster.
Yeah, so I was tempted.
Just sprint down to that something, try wall running and jumping at like that. That's the real reason, like, energy drinks were invented.
They are just energy.
I need to keep up on my pilot.
I loved it. Anyway, let's move on to number 4.
Yeah.
Luckily, I think we're done with the doom and gloom, sort of. Number 4. Yeah. Microsoft is reportedly bringing Game Pass to Nintendo Switch, also planning to reveal new hardware at E3. This is 2 parts. So part 1, we have Microsoft is bringing Xbox Game Pass Ori and the Blind Forest to Nintendo Switch. This is a report. So it's not an announcement, it's a rumor. It's from Sharif Saeed over at VG247, who writes, "It looks like Microsoft will soon reveal an unprecedented partnership with Nintendo. According to a Direct Feed Games report, Microsoft is working on making its Xbox Game Pass subscription service available on Nintendo Switch. The service will reportedly rely on Microsoft's xCloud game streaming tech to stream Xbox One games to Switch consoles everywhere through a dedicated Xbox app. Game Informer has corroborated this information with its own sources, adding that an announcement is expected sometime this year. Direct Feed's report also reveals that Microsoft is working on making some of its published games available on Switch. Ori and the Blind Forest is specifically mentioned as a game that would be a good fit for Switch. This isn't the first time a Microsoft-published game has made its way onto other platforms, as Minecraft is available on plenty of platforms not run by the company, including Switch. So first question, is this likely?
I totally expect Ori and the Blind Forest to appear on Switch either at the same time or just before Ori and the Will of the Wisps comes out.
Cool. That would be cool.
As for Game Pass appearing on the Switch, that would be impressive, but also would kind of undercut Nintendo's sales of like old indie games, because that's one of like that was like a whole stream of things that were coming out on the Switch in the early days and stuff. Indie games that used to be a bit like that have come out on PC or Xbox or PlayStation. I Am Setsuna. I had a list of games in my head and it's gone. But you know what I mean.
There are some indie games that are available in Game Pass. Sometimes day and date. There are a lot that aren't available anywhere. Like Ashen, for example. Would suddenly become available on the Switch via this Game Pass thing. In terms of is this likely, I would have said it's 50-50, except, and I left this sentence in the story for a reason, Game Informer corroborated the information with its own sources, and I trust Game Informer's sources. Yeah. So I would say this is almost certain.
Yeah.
So how big a move is this?
If this is Xbox and Nintendo getting into a partnership, with because we're not doing this stuff with crossplay and stuff. If they start sharing content in games and stuff, excluding the PlayStation, that's got to be a wake-up call for Sony. And if they don't wake up, that could be a massive blow to their next generation of consoles.
Yeah.
If like I could get an Xbox or a Switch, it's like I can play all these games, or I could get the PlayStation 4 and play this list of like exclusive games. Because if they start like edging it with like the larger like category of games, we've seen how many studios Microsoft has bought.
horses may
then
HQ.
it could turn the tables on what's happened this generation with PlayStation having the massive list of exclusives and nothing really coming out on Xbox.
Yeah, because we've had that discussion many times. I mean, this is power play, right? Because we know from for years now, since Phil basically took over Microsoft, Xbox, not Microsoft. Yeah. Phil Spencer did not take over Microsoft. That they're not as they'll sell their hardware, like their Xbox consoles and whatnot, but between things like Play Anywhere and crossplay, and now potentially this, they're more interested in just getting people into the ecosystem, and they're not so bothered about where they get into the ecosystem. So this might cost, because we know that all first-party games that Microsoft releases are going into Game Pass.
Yeah.
So that would mean, logically follow that down the road, that would mean that all first-party Xbox Studios games would be available on the Switch. Which
I don't think that's going to happen for technical issues. Given
but it's streaming, right? So it doesn't matter. It's like Gears 5 and Halo Infinite are going to be huge technical achievements of video games, but it doesn't matter that the Switch can't run them if the report's true and it's running through xCloud. All you need to do is download the app on your Switch and be connected to the internet, and you just stream it. And as long as the streaming works, which I would assume they won't release xCloud until it works properly, you could be playing Halo Infinite on your Switch. Probably not on the move, because I imagine the data would be insane.
Yeah.
But lying down on there over there, just kicking back, Halo Infinite. I mean,
it's possible. I mean, I definitely believe. Well, I believe it's possible that there could be talks about getting the Game Pass onto the Switch. The streaming service stuff, I'm more we'll see what comes, because that might just be people extending what's already been talked about. But I can totally see them bringing stuff like Ori the Will of the Wisps, a load of games that will run perfectly on the Switch from the Microsoft catalog, the games catalog, onto the Switch. But when it comes to the streaming stuff, I want proof of life, really.
I mean, this is Game Informer says they're expecting an announcement this year. I would be lying down on the floor over there from the shockwave that comes out of my monitor and blasts me across the room if they announced that it was coming this year.
Yeah.
But it had in terms of being on the Switch, I feel like xCloud and Game Pass are just interlinked. They have to be. They both have to work together. If for no other reason than I imagine the architecture of Switch and Xbox is so different that you couldn't just log into Game Pass and download Ori onto your Switch. I mean, the Switch might be powerful enough to run Ori in the Blind Forest, but it was designed to run on an Xbox. I mean, we saw recently when Axiom Verge was released on Epic Games Store as one of the free games. It didn't work because the game was looking for the files that were labeled Steam. And those are the kinds of problems I feel like you'd see if you ported Ori to the Switch, then fair enough. But if you just downloaded it from Game Pass using the Xbox app, it would probably, I don't know, catch fire or something. Because it would just be what is memory? Where is memory? It's meant to be over here, that kind of thing. That's why backwards compatibility was such an issue, because the PS3 was so vastly different from the PS4. But I mean, this is wow. If because imagine if this goes the other direction. And
yes, I have seen people looking at the idea of Mario appearing on an Xbox.
And then you're talking about Xbox games going towards Nintendo, which is huge for Microsoft because they will have so many Game Pass subscribers, extra from the Switch, especially considering how fast that console is selling. But if that then goes in the opposite direction as well, and we start getting Zelda,
app.
Mario on the Nintendo app on the Xbox, whatever, on the Xbox X1, XX2, And then you're still to go back to your point, sorry, that you were saying before about PlayStation then being in a corner all by itself. That becomes orders of magnitude even more awkward for them because all of a sudden, like, I can play Mario games on my Xbox, I can play Halo games on my Switch, and PlayStation's just over here going, well, we might get around to turning on crossplay eventually. Nobody gives a shit at that point.
Yeah, I'm just having sudden visions of like if this happens like both ways, it's similar to like the Master Chief appearing in Smash Bros.
Yeah, I mean, we still don't know the 4 DLC characters.
Yeah, they released the fourth one. It's just like, it's the Master Chief. And everyone's like, what? And then the very next announcement, oh yeah, there's like going to be a Nintendo app on the Microsoft Store.
That's it, man. Like, yeah. I hope that would happen at an E3 just to see our reactions live on stream.
Yeah.
I would probably have a breakdown. Anyway, the second part of this news story, which we won't be spending too much time on, is Microsoft to reveal new Xbox hardware at E3, which again is a report. This was written by Rebecca Valentine over at GamesIndustry.biz. He writes, with Sony staying out of E3 2019, Microsoft has a chance to command quite a bit of attention, and according to reports, they stand poised to do exactly that, with the unveiling of not one but 2 new consoles, at least one of which is in the codenamed Xbox Scarlet family of devices. French site Jeux Video reports, via Google Translate and corroborated by Third, that Microsoft's A3 2019 press conference, the company will unveil consoles codenamed Lockhart and Anaconda. I have heard of Anaconda before, but I've never heard of Lockhart. Yeah, it's a name that's floated around in the rumor sphere about the Xbox. Like, they're all code names at this point. So
yeah.
So again, I'll ask the first question: is this likely? I mean,
it wouldn't surprise me if we saw some sort of hardware at the show.
Yeah.
Maybe even like another console.
I mean, that's what they're talking about, because they're talking about 2 new consoles. It specifically says consoles, not hardware.
Yeah.
Which was Anaconda, which I've heard of, which is rumored to be one of the 2 consoles. Because remember, the rumors that we talked about these last year on the podcast, the rumors are that Microsoft is planning to release one mega all singing, all dancing home video console and one streaming box.
Yeah.
Which is a lot cheaper and basically runs on Game Pass and downloading games and streaming games.
Mm-hmm.
So that could be Lockhart.
Yeah.
But yes, I agree with you. I would not be surprised in the slightest if this was a thing.
Yeah.
And I'm going to ask this second question, and I think it has a very obvious answer, at least from where we're sitting right now, which is, how big will this announcement be? Will it be a full-on console reveal, or more akin to Xbox One X's initial reveal at E3 2017?
I imagine if they show both off, it's going to be a big presentation. But I mean, trying to remember the 2017 presentation.
That was when they did the video at the end of E3. They revealed the name, which you should remember, because that was where I went mental, because everybody laughed at me because I said it was going to be called the Xbox One X, and nobody believed me, and it was the Xbox One X. And then they did the video, and we mocked the video mercilessly because of all the pixels.
Oh, right, yeah. All pixels will remain compressed.
Yeah, the uncompressed pixels.
Yeah, I mean, it wouldn't surprise me. I'm still not sure if we're getting like the consoles next year or like the year after. So some sort of review is coming, and it would be the talk of the town if they released a lot of information this year. But maybe they'll just do a tease, and we'll get more hard details next year.
That's what
depends really when it launches.
Yeah, I guess that's kind of what I was thinking as well. Like, I feel like they'd set it up. They'd set it up to knock it out of the park.
Yeah.
In like February or March time next year.
Yeah.
To then roll into E3 to show the games.
Yeah.
To then launch it in November. I need to clip this part of the podcast out and save it in a folder. Because if I just nailed the entire timeline.
Yeah.
And I guess the last question is, what do we want to see? Like, I feel like I want to see what I just described.
Yeah. I want to see like a run-up of Xbox One games which are coming out in like the next year or two. And then I want to see about the console. I don't want to see the console, like them talk about 10, 15 minutes, like talking heads about some console or something spinning on the big screen at the back of the stage.
Yes.
Then them talk about some games. I want to see the games for this generation console first, and then whet my appetite for something that may come in the future.
Yeah. Yeah, because I feel like you want to do it chronologically, right? You want to say, here's what we've got coming in the next 12 months to Xbox One X and One S. And One, to be fair. Like, here's what we've got to the consoles we already have out. And they do the thing that they did last year, where they mix in Xbox Studio games with third-party partners who don't have a PlayStation stage to reveal things at.
Yeah.
So that could be interesting in terms of who they could potentially get for E3 anyway.
Everyone.
But let's just say Resident Evil 8 is coming out, say, in January, which it probably isn't. But imagine if it was, and they wanted to reveal it. Are they going to do their own reveal, or are they going to do it at E3? If they're going to do it at E3, they can't do it at PlayStation again this year. So imagine if that was at an Xbox press conference.
Did you imagine doing the E3 presentations and everything, if stuff like this did happen, that we're just going to look at the Twitter account of PlayStation, it's going to be also coming on PlayStation. Also,
they'll be releasing their own PlayStation branded trailers, but nobody will be giving a shit, right, at that moment, because they're not part of the conversation, because they've chosen to remove themselves from the conversation of E3.
They'll probably spend a lot of money to get all of their PlayStation branded ones on YouTube.
This is why I think it's such an own goal, because E3 is still a major tentpole for people talking about games. Like, regardless of the show itself and the stuff that Sean Layden was saying about E3 as an event for press and partners, and it's not really about that anymore. I agree with that, but that doesn't lessen the impact of E3. Because that's when more eyes are on this than a random Fallout 76 reveal live stream.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's all coming out of this one event. And I feel like that's where PlayStation has scored an own goal. And they've given the stage to Microsoft, essentially, to do whatever they want.
They feel like they're far enough ahead to be able to do this, and frankly, they are.
They are.
At this generation.
But that's also very short-sighted. I feel like, especially with Microsoft, haven't really been playing to catch up in this generation for the last couple of years. More so that they've been setting themselves up to try and go into the next generation.
Yeah.
It's going to be a fascinating summer. It really is. Let's move on to our fifth one. Reggie Fils-Aime is retiring this April. Doug Bowser will replace him as president of Nintendo. This is from Vicky Blake over at MCV. I wrote the headline pretty much twice and didn't need to do that. Nintendo of America president Reggie Fils-Aime will retire in April 2019. Nintendo announced that Fils-Aime, who plans to spend more time with his wife, family, and kids, will be succeeded by current senior VP of Sales and Marketing Doug Bowser on April 15th, 2019. Fils-Aime thanked the Nintendo fan community via a video shared on Twitter in which he called his successor a passionate and powerful leader. And this is a quote from him, which I want to read. Nintendo owns a part of my heart forever. It's a part that is filled with gratitude for the incredibly talented people I've worked with, for the opportunity to represent such a wonderful brand, and most of all, to feel like a member of the world's most positive and enduring gamer community. As I look forward to departing in both good health and good humour, this is not game over for me, but instead levelling up to more time with my wife, family, and friends. Now, before I'm getting in there, before any jokes are made, or any discussions are had about certain aspects of this story that we know are coming, I need to ask the serious question first. How big a miss will Reggie be? I mean, he has been the face of Nintendo America for 15 years. Like, he's basically been Mr. Nintendo in the West. Like, I mean, it's going to be a transition period for sure, I feel like.
Yeah.
Like, a lot of people love this guy for good reason. Like, he's always been the guy on the front lines. Like, even when Wii U was tanking and everybody was talking shit on Nintendo, including us, like, we did too. Like, he was out there just being that guy who was just like, Nintendo is awesome, though. And you kind of wanted to be like, yeah, Nintendo is awesome, even though they're suffering right now. It's like, he wins you over quite easily, I feel like. And I'm going to miss seeing him at E3s. And indirects. And just the weird shit that he did. Like that one thing with, when they announced Smash Brothers. That one time, where it was the big fight between him and Satoru Iwata. And stuff like that. Like, with him now leaving, I hope they don't lose that silliness.
I am kind of hoping that when his successor comes on, he's wearing one of those Koopa backpacks that children can get.
I guess that leads me to my second question, which is, how on earth did Nintendo manage to have someone whose last name is Bowser in charge of Nintendo of America?
It's just like, there's going to be some like a little video of like someone walking into Nintendo America and stuff, and it's like, it's just from their perspective, gets all the way up to Bowser, and he just like looks over and just goes, sorry, she's in the little castle. And it turns out it's the like Mario mascot.
I've seen every joke has been made at this point, but it's just like, how the fuck did this happen? I read this news on Twitter and thought it was a prank. Or one of those parody sites doing a news story. It took me like 20 minutes to be like, oh no, this is real. Just there's a picture of him going around Twitter. Where he's holding up a sign that says thanks very much or hello everybody or something like that, and someone zoomed in on the background in his shelf, because on the background in his shelf he's got Mario and Luigi back to back tied up. And I was like, okay, you've got my attention now. I do have a couple more questions about this news story that I want to pitch, that I want to pause for the podcast. Number one, do you think Reggie's body is still ready?
What?
It's the last time we might be able to use this meme, dude. Come on. He's retiring now, like.
My body is broken.
His body was ready. Please tell me you know what that's from. That was a thing Reggie literally said on stage, and my body is ready. That's where that whole thing came from.
I can't remember what it's from now.
Oh, that's where it came from. Reggie said it. Like, on stage. Hence why I made the thing of, do you think his body is still ready?
Yeah, so I don't know what game it was.
Oh, let's just move on. Will this affect Amy's ability to ask for games to be released on Switch? Because, like, I mean, I'm 2 for 2.
I'm pretty sure it's like, well, maybe, because we do think that they're confusing Droblog as a Japanese name, so it would be Nintendo America who is...
I mean, I was atting Nintendo of America because they spoke English. Like, it was pointless atting just Nintendo. Well, I mean, I imagine there are plenty of people at Nintendo Japan who speak English, but I was addressing the English-speaking Twitter account. But, I mean, I asked for Captain Toad on Switch, and then the very next Direct, they announced Captain Toad. And then I asked for Mario Maker on Switch, and then the very next Direct, they announced Mario Maker on Switch. Do you know how we're going to find out, though? Whether this affects my ability to ask for things and get them. Immediately following this news, I went on Twitter, and I said, hi, Nintendo of America, could you please put Reggie in Smash? So...
Is it a trophy, or...?
As a character. Reggie should be in Smash. So we'll see. If I can still get things from Nintendo. Number 6. So we've done our 5 proper stories. There was a lot to choose from in the funny story we end the podcast on category this week, and I went with this one. Norwich's Fortnite Live Festival was a complete disaster. This is from Tom Phillips over at Eurogamer, who writes, a festival designed to recreate Fortnite on the outskirts of Norwich has, somewhat predictably, not lived up to expectations. Excuse me. Event organisers flogged 2,500 tickets to kids and parents. Entry cost upwards of £12 and unlimited access wristbands a further £20. Wait, a further £20? So they cost £32, not £20.
The wristbands were for unlimited access, I think.
Further £20. So it was actually £32. In return, families got what amounted to a few fairground attractions. Photos from the event show a climbing wall for 3 people, archery for 4 people, and 4 go-karts. An attraction dubbed a cave experience was a lorry trailer with tarpaulin over it. An indoors area where you could play actual Fortnite was probably the best thing here, although it cost money to access and you had to queue to do so. Update. Epic sues organisers. Statement, quote, the quality of our player experience is incredibly important to us, whether it's inside the game or at official public events like last year's Fortnite Pro-Am. Epic Games was not in any way associated with the event that took place in Norwich, and we've issued a claim against the organisers in the High Court of London, end quote. I mean, wow.
What were these people thinking if they were using like the Fortnite name without? Also, what if someone said, "Oh, there's a Fortnite experience"? What would you expect that to be?
I would expect that to be real life Fortnite. So if there was a Fortnite, because it was called Fortnite Live. So what I would expect is either a laser tag arena or a paintball arena with like bits built up to look like things in Fortnite. I don't play Fortnite. I know Tricky Towers is a thing, but and then
I don't know the golf course.
There was a cube at one point that did something, like, I don't know. But I would expect it to basically be that kind of experience. Not a fucking lorry with tarpaulin over it.
Yeah. What I expected was a paintball arena, possibly crossed with a soft play area. So you've got these like giant, the giant foam blocks and stuff.
Cool.
That you can like sort of build like bunkers and stuff with. And people running around in paintball game. Yeah. That's what I expected.
But you still jump out of a plane with an umbrella.
This sounds like the same Christmas story we have every year with some park or area or like manor house somewhere in Britain where they've got like a Santa experience which is overpriced and incredibly bad, which we get every single year. We get a story about this.
Yeah, we do.
That's what this is.
It was someone trying to be cheeky and make money off the back of Fortnite being the most because Fortnite's the most popular game and kids love it, and parents who need things to do for their kids will be like,
it's half term,
because it's half term or just a weekend, will be like, oh, it's this thing, it's about Fortnite. Fine, we'll take the kids. It'll be a Sunday. Like it'll be the thing we do on Sunday to keep the kids out of trouble. My favourite part though, I mean, the lorry with the tarpaulin over it as the cave experience was a close second. But my favourite part is where they had the LAN system set up for Fortnite, a free-to-play game, and then they charged entry to get into that area. So you had to pay to get in, and then you had to pay to play a free-to-play game. Extra. In an event you'd already paid to get in. That's magnificent in terms of sheer stupidity. I know Epic Games has this reputation for suing everyone.
Yeah.
But I feel like this case, go get him, Tiger. Thumbs up. That's a thumbs up from Amy. And also, because I couldn't choose between the two stories, I want to quickly congratulate the Shanghai Dragons for finally winning a game in the Overwatch League. It was the longest running losing streak in sports history at 42 losses and no wins. They beat the Boston Uprising 3-1 last night.
Yeah, Boston Uprising, not a bad team, at least it was last year. So good on them. I mean,
did you watch it?
I wish I could say more about this. I don't know if the first female player in Overwatch actually played in it.
She was in the first match, and then they switched their comp up. So she was playing D.Va in the first match because they were running the triple tank.
Yeah.
I think. No, they weren't, but they had a diva in their team. They were running a Pharah in the first match. And then they swapped her, because most teams in the Overwatch League this season, or the current meta, have been flexing their diva to Sombra. But Gigui doesn't flex from diva to Sombra, so they subbed her in the second match because they want to play Sombra. And in fairness, it was definitely the right move. Because I was watching the match, and that Sombra was getting 6-person EMPs.
Yeah.
And it was like, yeah, it was the right move. But yes, she was playing.
I'm surprised you're playing she's most well known for Zarya.
She is. She's a really good diva player.
The best Zarya in the world,
Yeah,
apparently.
it's one of those things though where I guess the person, because Zarya is like critically important to the meta at the moment, so I'm guessing the person who they did have playing Zarya was better at Zarya than they would have been at diva. Like Giguri is probably better at diva than that other person would have been at diva, if that makes sense. Which it does. Probably not anybody watching this, but we really like the Overwatch League. Keith, let's wrap it up with games out this week. You'll notice on your document that I've split this into 2 halves.
Yes.
Which would you like to take?
Well, let's put it this way. On February the 26th, we've got coming out Anno 1800 on PC, Townman, A Kingdom Rebuilt on PC, 8-Bit Invaders on PS4 and Xbox One, Dirt Rally 2.0 on PC, PS4 and Xbox One, Stellaris Console Edition on PS4 and Xbox One, surprisingly not coming out on PC, and Nier Automata, Game of the Yora Edition?
Yeah.
PC and PS4 on February the 26th.
On February 28th, we've got Ape Out on PC and Switch. We've also got Space Engineers, which I guess is an early access. That's launching officially on PC. Deltarune Chapter 1, which is the free-to-play sequel to Undertale, is coming out on PS4 and Switch. On March 1st, we've got Dead or Alive 6 on PC, PS4 and Xbox One. And we've got Champ and Earl back in the groove on PC, PS4, Xbox One, and Switch. I feel like my standout game in this list is Nier Automata, because that game is amazing. But if it's a new game that hasn't already been released, it would probably be Ape Out, because that looks kind of fun. It's basically Hotline Miami, except you play an angry gorilla and you throw people all over the place. I'm a simple girl sometimes, what can I say? That's going to do it for episode 147 of The Words About Gamescast. Thanks for bearing with us in this new format. We'll see you again next week. If you're watching this as it has happened, or within a couple of days of it happening, head over to twitch.tv/wordsaboutgames, because we're probably streaming right now. We're doing a 48-hour charity event in aid of special effect, and it would be wonderful if you could check us out. That's going to do it. Say bye, Keith.
Bye.